Let's go to this conversation now. Several political parties will picket outside the Public Protector's office in Tshwane on Friday. This is over President Cyril Ramaphosa's Phala Phala farm saga, which continues. Of course, the Public Protector is still expected to release that report. The parties include the EFF, UDM, ATM, COPE and the SADP. They're calling on the acting Public Protector to release the report. And let's speak now to EFF Spokesperson Sinawo Thambo. Now, thank you so much for your time this evening. What can we expect on Friday?
Look, political parties which are represented in Parliament, the opposition particularly, will be marching to the Public Protector's office to demand that the acting Public Protector, Kollega, releases the report into the criminal activity which occurred on Phala Phala farm. So the basis of this is that Kollega at the moment is in breach of the Executive Members Ethics Act, which stipulates that after 30 days of initial complaint, a report must be released and handed over to the President in order for it to be handed over to the National Assembly for deliberation. And it's almost over 90 days now that she has not released even a preliminary report into what happened in Phala Phala farm. So opposition parties are marching there to demand that she releases that report. There's no reason for her not to release it. And we saw earlier that some segments of it have been leaked because it's understandable that there are law-abiding citizens in the office of the acting Public Protector who just don't want to be part of a cover-up. And that is what is happening now.
So are you accusing the Public Protector of a cover-up here, listening to your last statement?
There's no justification for her not to have released this report. So it means that she's dragging her feet deliberately, like all other institutions which are meant to investigate Cyril Ramaphosa. I mean, we haven't had anything from the South African Revenue Services. We had to push the Reserve Bank through the Deputy President of the EFF in the Standing Committee of Finance to ensure that Ramaphosa answers for what happened, and they finally did. And what the Reserve Bank said is that they asked Ramaphosa what are the underlying transactions which happened in Phala Phala farm and how much was there, which means essentially that they have no knowledge of that transaction. They didn't declare it to the South African Reserve Bank as required by law. So that is the point in which we're at. We think institutions are deliberately dragging their feet, and the Public Protector is one such.
You are, opposition parties, you are in Parliament, you can be able to engage with the Office of the Public Protector on this particular matter to find out what the delays may be here. Have you done that, and have you received responses if you have?
Look, the delays seem to be Ramaphosa refusing to answer himself. But with the Public Protector, it's much more sinister because, I mean, the leaked responses today which reveal that Ramaphosa was aware 45 days before the theft that there was $580,000, which amounts to 8 million rand on the farm. He didn't declare it. He didn't open a case about it. In fact, the leak suggests that he asked his workers who received this bag of money to move it from the safe to a different location on the farm for safekeeping. And that safekeeping ended up being a couch. So he had no interest in declaring this money or putting this money into any financial institution. He had no interest in putting it into a bank because he knows it's illegal money. So it's a very bad situation, and she must release that report.
And I was going to ask you about that because those reports suggesting that this mysterious Sudanese man who then made this particular transaction and some of the developments that we've seen around this particular matter, what do you think this continues to do in the public domain, particularly if we are still, as you say, without this crucial report by the Office of the Public Protector? Because there's still quite a lot of talk. There is, a lot going on. We saw in Parliament a lot of you unhappy about how the President, dealt with this particular issue when it comes to what happened at his farm.
Look, I think it erodes public trust between the people and those they've elected to lead them. What Ramaphosa is doing is degenerating the social contract between the people who voted for him and himself, because he rose on the ticket of transparency, rose on the ticket of being an anti-corrupt crusader. But now he's refusing to answer to institutions that are asking him to account for money which we certainly believe he has laundered. I mean, he doesn't want to answer to Parliament, the executive authority which holds him accountable. He doesn't want to answer to the Reserve Bank directly. He doesn't want to be truthful to the Public Protector when it comes to the declarations that he has made there in terms of the responses. I mean, it cannot be. He says that himself, he got the money from this Sudanese businessman. And then that money was for buffaloes, but those buffaloes are still on that Phala Phala farm 2 years later. It means that Ramaphosa has established a syndicate in which he allows his donors to give him money under the guise of buying game or animals. And these animals are never sold. It's a means of sourcing money for himself, and it's criminal activity that erodes our public trust in him. And the Parliament was condemned by the Constitutional Court for not effectively holding the executive accountable under the term of Jacob Zuma. And we are not allowing ourselves as opposition parties to be part of a history that sanitized corruption and protected corruption.
Very briefly then, as we wrap up this particular subject, what then happens if the public protector does not meet your deadlines as the opposition parties? What other step can we then expect to see from yourselves as you say that you're in this fight for accountability?
Look, opposition parties are not shy from approaching the judiciary to ensure that the public protector releases the report. She must be compelled to do so if she continues on the trajectory that she's doing. But what we're doing now is making society appreciate the fact that there's an institution that is sitting on a report and refusing to release even a preliminary version of it, so that the people of South Africa can appraise themselves as to what the president did on Phala Phala farm. He's accused of money laundering, kidnapping, abducting, using state resources in order to conceal a crime. State helicopters flew from here to go and collect people in Namibia when there's so much violent crime in this country. Resources were used to go and recover money that is donated to him and given to him by foreign businessmen, and it's foreign currencies being stashed under sofas instead of being in banks. So we want South African society to appreciate that, and that begins by going to the picket line, because our people need to have a much deeper appreciation that the crimes Cyril Ramaphosa does affect our economy, they degenerate the strength of our economy, and they need to know that.
Speaking about a report, there's also one that, is also brewing as part of, one would call loosely a scandal, within the EFF right now. Johan van Lochrenberg, a former SARS official, now laying a complaint when it comes to that issue that we saw bubbling under even from last week, that Inspector General's report on the SARS rogue unit. I wonder, how does the party then respond? Because there has been quite a lot of, talk about this in the public domain around the fact that your deputy president is the one that is accused of sending this report to the office of the public protector. Also looking at the fact that the court also pronounced in this matter and talking about how even being in possession of it is something that is not legal.
Look, I think Johan van Lochrenberg appreciates that he's incriminated by the IGI report of 2014, which reveals that he was part and parcel of establishing a covert unit of intelligence within SARS that was spying on political opponents and was being used as a tool to fight political opponents as well. So the report, Pravin Gordhan attempted to get it scratched off a case between him and the EFF, and the Equality Court ruled that that report remains part of the court's public record. And that is the basis that the Deputy President of the EFF handed that report not only to the public protector, but the EFF itself has released that report on its website. We released it on our social media platforms, and it has been read and accessed by millions of South Africans. But there's something that I think we must also be able to address, is that there's an emerging tendency in South Africa that the judiciary and instruments of the law are being used to cover up corruption. So you can't want to classify acts of corruption, and it is something that is a trend. I mean, Cyril Ramaphosa gets donations for CR17 election campaign, goes and seals them in court. Now the IGI report, which reveals that Van Lochrenberg and Gordhan were spying on people and using SARS to conduct intelligence operations. They want that to be off the public record. So there's attempts in South Africa, and we are accepting it as a nation, and it is wrong, to use the judiciary to hide corruption.
So
and
are you saying the judiciary then is party to concealing or colluding to cover up corruption? Is that what I'm hearing you say?
It is being used for the wrong ends. We think the judiciary and statutes within it are being used for the wrong ends. I mean, that's the terrain of contestation nowadays in South African politics. People go to court. But the problem is that now those with money are using the courts to hide their corruption. Cyril Ramaphosa, Pravin Gordhan, Johan van Lochrenberg, they don't want the people of South Africa to read that report. Why don't they dispute it? That report has never been rubbished by any authority, proper authority. The Skakana report still stands as well. It has never been refuted by any judicial arm of the state. But they continue to want our people not to interact with information. Why? Why can't they allow the people of South Africa to have access to these reports? Why do they want to classify corruption and hide those things that they are doing by misusing arms of the state.
So now we're out of time. I wish we had more time to talk about this further, but in about 10, 20 seconds, let's talk about what is going on in the city of Johannesburg, because tonight when I was speaking to some of the councillors there, Margaret Arnolds, for example, says that the EFF no longer wants the mayor to be in office. This as, of course, as the minority parties, they want to then bring back the motion of no confidence, against the mayor. Where do you stand?
Look, I think we'll see the unfoldings of the Johannesburg Council as they unfold. But I think one thing we must be able to say is that the DA is being taught a lesson in humility. Because recently they were going around giving ultimatums to the EFF about who they should vote for and if they vote for certain people, when they never engaged us directly. So there's a lesson in humility that the Democratic Alliance is being taught on what constitutes a coalition government. They've been running it like their back room because they have a sense of entitlement and authority when they don't have a majority mandate to govern from our people. So they run these coalitions as if they've won a popular vote when they have not. And it seems like coalition partners and members in the councils in South Africa are beginning to appreciate that they need to humble the DA. And it seems like that is a trend that is going to continue going forward.
All right, Sinawo, thank you so much for your time this evening. Unfortunately, that's all we have time for, but do appreciate you coming in. That is EFF spokesperson Sinawo Thambo.